All right, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a Planning and Zoning Commission work session. We're starting at 6:45 p.m. Wednesday, August 13th in Borough Assembly Chambers. Could I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Frazier,
Here.
Mr. Neff,
Here.
Mr. Dagan,
Present.
Ms. Craig, Ms. Williamson, Mr. Cleary, Mr. Mangini. You have a quorum?
Thank you. Let's move on to citizens' comments. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. If you are on the phone and you'd like to make comments, you can call our local number at 907-486-3231 or toll free at 855-492-9202. If you're here in the room to speak in person, please sign in and state your name for the record. Thank you.
Hi, Dora Cross, Finance Director for the Borough. Just here in case you had procedural questions on what occurred for the foreclosed properties that are before you later on. Thank you.
Thanks, Dora. Do we have anybody on the phone? Okay. Seeing nobody else, let's move on to our discussion items for the evening. First item for discussion is a draft resolution with changes to Title 17 related to child care facilities. Staff report, please.
Yes, based on Chris French, Community Development Director. Based on the last work session, staff or the commission directed staff to work on actually drafting potential changes related to child care facilities to Title 17. These changes have not, I'll just make a note, these changes have not been reviewed by the borough attorney at this time. Based on any changes that the commission would request tonight, I will take the draft ordinance to the attorney for review. These changes have been drafted in consideration of current Alaska statutes as well as Alaska Administrative Code. So as a draft Planning and Zoning Commission resolution is what's before you. I will not go through the whereas statements, but I'll just kind of briefly go through what the proposed changes would be. The first would be in section 172540, which is the C definitions. We would define child care center, child care facility, and child care facility in-home. Child care center, and child care facility are all basically the state definition from Alaska statutes, and then the child care facility in-home is a little different than the state because they break up the in-home into, I believe, 2 different categories, like 8 or less kids and then 9 to like 12 children. And so for our proposal here, I just kept it at 12 for the definition of in-home. And because we really didn't have, unless you all think there's a reason to have different zoning for 3 different, a change of 3 different children, staff really didn't feel that that was necessary. And I think the major changes in the licensing requirements from up to 8 and 9 to 12 is mainly the number of staff that's required for those facilities. That's the major change in the state's requirements. And then in 176020 is the RR2 zone. That would allow child care facility in-home. RR1 would allow child care facility in-home. R1 would allow child care facility in-home. In the R2 zone would allow child care center within a non-residential school or church structure, and then child care facility in-home. And then for R3, child care center within a non-residential school or church structure, and child care facility in-home. And then in the business district, child care center and child care facility in-home would be allowed. And then in the RNC, the same. The UNC, we would be taking out the daycare facilities. I will say one thing I just noticed here is that the underlying in blue did not take in there. So I'll change that in the next review. Under 17120, child care center and child care facility in-home should be blue and underlined because those would be additions. Whereas I took out the word daycare facilities after G in schools. It would be similar to what's in 17.110.20 as proposed. And then in 17-130-20, we would add childcare center to the public use lands district. And then in 17-175-40, we would add a parking requirement for childcare center and a parking requirement for childcare facility in-home. Any questions on any of those potential changes?
So in the residential business district, your living space, is that the one where it can't be on the first floor or in the front?
That would be the business.
Is that just business? That's not retail business?
I'd have to go look at it and see for sure. We're talking about just in a dwelling unit, so if someone wanted to do an in-home childcare facility in a unit that's in a mixed-use building, for example, this would allow that to happen. I'd have to go check. Also in that zoning, it can be above, it also can be behind the building and attached. So it could still be on the first floor, just behind the commercial space.
I don't disagree with where you've put this. I'm just trying to draw the mental picture in my head
I'd have to go
of
check
what it
if
looks
the-
like when somebody
I'd
comes
have
in
to-
for a permit for it. That's all.
I'd have to check the retail business included that. I know it does in the business district.
I
It
know,
does
there's
include
not, it's not like there's very much retail business anyway,
there's-
particularly that people are living
It's
in.
most of what I know is on your island,
Mm-hmm.
and it's mostly vacant, I think, right now.
Yeah, so I will say that I appreciate you mirroring the state's definitions. I think that makes it a lot easier for applicants to do things the right way and have a good understanding of the requirements that they have to meet.
The other thing I would say about that is too, I did attach other jurisdictions' requirements, and it's strange how many of them do not match what the state has or even try to match the state licensing requirements. It seems very interesting to me. Now, whether these, the zoning for these predate what the state has, Alaska statutes, it's certainly possible. I didn't research that further, but it's very interesting. Some codes that I know are fairly new, didn't even try to match what the state did in their licensing. So I thought that was interesting.
That is an interesting choice. Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, clarification, what does half a space per employee on line 186 of the document speak to? Half a space of parking? How's that?
So technically, half a space would be our code you round up. So if requiring you, if it's one employee and it's half a space, it's one space, basically. But if it's two employees, then it's one space. And so when we looked at what other places have done in terms of parking requirements, it's very comparable to that. We try not to overpark them, and one of the things you read in both American Planning Association and several other documents that talk about overregulation of daycares and how that negatively impacts them actually going into business is over-requirement of parking. From what they say is the primary need for childcare facilities, especially in-home childcare, is the drop-off and pickup locations and spaces. What they also say is once you get to a childcare center, then you start getting into situations where maybe you need additional drop-off pickup areas because you start getting a whole lot more kids in there. So that's why you have some of that in there where it kind of graduates up based on the number of children in the facility.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
Seema?
Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Child care facility in-home, so line 79. Did we look up what our state licensing requirements are for, because up to 12 kids in an in-home?
It is.
Holy
And we have
moly.
several of those in the borough already that are up to 12 children in-home facilities, in residential. Well, the way to look at that is you can look at what, I'm trying to think of, Haley, is this the one attached that has a number of children? There's the licensing for the currently that's in there. I was trying to make sure, see if it had the number of kids.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It does under capacity?
It
Okay, I
sure
see that.
does.
it does. It's
Yeah.
right before age group, so the numbers get a little.
We have most of them are up to the 8. There is one that's up to 12. As I said, once you start getting to more than 8, the number of employees does go up, and so that does impact how many of those, as we know, that's one of the major reasons why you don't have a lot of childcare facilities in the community is the employee requirements. That does limit. That's why you only have one that's at 12. It happens to be in an R2 zone. And then the other two that are above 12 that would fall under child care center are both in basically what I would say non-residential buildings.
They're both in church
So,
buildings, aren't
church
they?
buildings.
River of Life, and then, well, so I guess we'll. Yeah. Which has its residential zoning, but obviously it's not a residential use.
The other thing that we did attach to the agenda item here is also the Kodiak collaborative presentation that they gave to the assembly. That's also attached here to your agenda item as well. I'm not going to go over that, but I think there was a question about whether we would make that available to the commission, so I wanted to make sure that was attached.
Awesome, thank you. Any other comments on this item? I'll throw one more thing in there, I guess, since we started talking about parking, just for everybody's awareness, I guess. Kodiak's parking code and requirements are far more restrictive and onerous than most other communities in Alaska, including Anchorage and the Matsu Borough. So for a lot of uses, we require significantly more parking spaces. There's been a lot of discussions about changing that over the years, about shifting focus from burdening people with parking on their property to just regulating the public space differently. So instead of making people have 5 parking spaces at their house because they have a single family home and an ADU, you don't tell them how many parking spaces they need. You just tell them they can't park on the road, and if they do, they get in trouble. So that way, if people like riding bicycles and they have some, moral standing against cars, and they're never going to have any, they don't need 5 parking spaces, right? So just kind of food for thought that when parking stuff does come up, like in code amendments and stuff, we really are more restrictive. So I think, like Chris mentioned, kind of getting rid of some of the barriers or hurdles that exist for some of these really important aspects of the community, I think maybe being a little bit more liberal or generous probably is the way to go.
Yeah, just to add on to that, there's 2 things. As I mentioned, parking is one of the 2 things that, in terms of zoning requirements, because there are other requirements we know of that are out there that over restrict in many ways childcare facilities and cause them to have a problem of not having enough. Some of those are at the state level, like number of employees you have to have, especially for, I think it's under 6-month-old children. There's a whole lot more employees get ramped up on those facilities than they do for where it's 2-year-old to 12-year-old. There's not as many employees until you get to over a certain number of kids, and then they get more employees. That's why you see when our list of licensed facilities, most of them are up to the 8, is because that's typically an in-home facility where the person who lives there, who operates it, can actually do it by themselves, and they don't need additional employees. When they start having to get additional employees, you notice we only had 1 that was up to the 12, just because that additional employee does put a burden of cost on those facilities that may not be something that they'll be able to cover. And so that's why you see that issue. The other thing that you see, besides parking, though, in zoning regulations that cause problems with them is just the cost of going through the approval and time of going through the approval process. Some people choose just not to go through it if you make them be a conditional use permit or something like that. A lot of times people don't go through the process because they don't want to have to go through all those hoops, or they'll go look for another zone where it's just allowed, and which they may or may not be able to find that, depending on the community.
So did you have a recommendation on our timeline for moving this forward?
I know we had some on the commission who wanted us to try to get this through in October. I think what we could do is, if we wanted to have this on in September, since I already have the resolution drafted, if we're not having a whole lot of changes to that, I can turn that into an ordinance and then send it to the attorney as soon as possible and get started on that, and we can have it go to public hearing in September. Now, again, that's if the commission wants to do that. We could also bring the ordinance back for another work session next month and then put it in for the October hearing.
What do you guys think?
I'd advocate for pushing forward, get it on the docket.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's move it forward quickly.
Okay.
I think it
will-
looks great the way it is. I don't think there's any significant changes to be made before it goes to the attorney.
Okay. And I will also say outdoor area requirements, all those kind of things, those are at the state level. So that's not something we really have to deal with. Pretty much what we have to deal with is where they're allowed in what zoning districts, what the parking requirement is, and if there's a review process, what's the review process? And what we're proposing here is what's recommended from the state and through a bunch of different nonprofit organizations and best practices from planning organizations is to make it a permitted use and break it up based on how your state licenses the facilities.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Let's move down to our next item for discussion, which is a review of short-term rental-related definitions.
Okay, so we've had several work sessions on this particular item. At the last work session, the commission requested that we would take a stab at these definitions in terms of making an amendment. So it's not written in a resolution yet, and I can certainly have that for the next meeting, is have a resolution and also have it reviewed by the attorney. But what this proposal would do is either define or somewhat redefine some of the definitions that are currently in the code. For one, as we talked about at the last work session, was to create an overarching kind of short-term rental definition and then have individual types of short-term rentals under that definition. That was something that the commission directed staff to go forward that way. So and how we define those or name them, I just called them STR 1 through STR 5, basically. And they basically come out to certain types of uses, some of which we already have in the code, some of which we don't have in the code. So STR 1 means a short-term rental. Basically, if you remember what we talked about at the last work session, we have a current dwelling unit definition that allows people who are living in a dwelling unit to rent up to 2 people a room, or maybe a room per person, depending on how it just says rent to 2 people. So what we did here is create this STR 1 definition, which is basically a short-term rental of no more than 2 guest rooms, but not exceeding 2 guests in an owner-occupied dwelling unit, while the owner is occupying the same dwelling unit for the entire rental period. The reason we wrote it that way is because that dwelling unit definition is, it may not say it explicitly, but since we're talking about the people who live in that unit are renting it out to 2 people, it is implied that those folks are living there as their primary residence. And so that's why we have it written this way in this definition. STR 2 means a short-term rental of guest rooms within a dwelling unit not to exceed 5 guest rooms. That's written that way to take in what is currently defined as the boarding home. One of the things that you'll see that I did here, and this is something we can talk about, is I took out up to 15 guests. The reason why I did that is that the current definition of boarding house, and I think you can see that on page 27 of 135, kind of like midway down the page. It means a building other than a hotel with not more than 5 sleeping rooms where lodging with or without meals is provided for compensation for 3 or more persons, but not exceeding 15 persons, other than on a day-to-day basis and which is not open to transient guests. In order to capture some of the uses that we've kind of been told anecdotally that are existing in the borough, is that we change this to not be say no day-to-day, even though that could be week-to-week, which would still be considered short-term rental. We just was silent on that, and we call it a short-term rental. The reason I took out the 15 guests is for 2 reasons. One is we don't define sleeping room in the current definition, but when you read the guest room definition that's on page 27 and 135, it's basically implied that, well, it's not implied, it's basically stated that there's no more than 2 persons to a guest room. And it also says in here that it includes boarding houses.
So we've actually lowered it then to 10
Yes.
people.
And we also had a
15.
conflict in the current code because we have guest room that says it includes boarding house. And then in the boarding house definition it says 15 people. So which one is it? So is it based on the number of guest rooms in that guest room definition? Or is it based on the boarding house one? So the proposal here would be just say it's up to 5 guest rooms. The guest room definition would handle the fact that it's no more than 2 people per guest room. And then ST3 means a short-term rental of a dwelling unit in a single-family or two-family residential zone property. The owner of the property is or is not present at the property for the duration of any short-term rental. This would be our vacation home definition, was basically what STR3 is. And then STR4 means a short-term rental of a dwelling unit within a multiple family residential zone property. The owner of the property is or is not present at the property for the duration of any short-term rental. Short-term rental use of a multifamily dwelling under a condominium regime must demonstrate approval from the condominium association board, and I put in parentheses, proof shall be the minutes of the board meeting approving the use of the dwelling unit as a short-term rental. And this is prior to commencing short-term rental operations. That's basically just to deal with the fact that if you're in a condominium regime, a lot of times they'll say no businesses. So you're going to want to have something from them to say that they're allowed to rent this unit out. And this would basically, I created this one because we really don't have anything clear in the code that talks about multifamily buildings that a unit could be a short-term rental, which you do see in some other places, some multifamily buildings that are owned and people rent them out on less than 30-day basis. And then SDR5 or bed and breakfast inn means a short-term rental for overnight accommodations that may include a morning meal in a dwelling unit, and the operator must reside on the premises, and the maximum number of guest rooms that can be rented is 5. Basically, we've kept everything else that's in the bed and breakfast inn definition, but we basically said the meal is optional. Basically, they may serve the meal, and we did talk about that before.
Which mirrors the state's current
Which
definition.
mirrors what the state
right.
talks about in terms of those facilities. And that's in their licensing requirements where it talks about they may have a meal. And then I added F in here just to make it clear for STR3 and STR4, since we're talking about full dwelling units. We wanted to make sure that people understand it's one contract at a time. I know Seema and I had some conversations back and forth, and I was happy that she was helping me clarify this. But when we're talking about a full dwelling unit, we don't want it so that people are trying to contract out like a group of rooms within it, or somehow they can break off a part of the unit as a separate thing and try to contract it. We want to make sure that, hey, when we're talking about you renting out the full unit, it's one contract at a time for the dwelling unit, and make it clear. So that's why we added paragraph F in here. Any questions on that short-term rental definition?
No, not on the definitions, but so it says there are 6 types of short-term rental uses.
Did I say 6?
It looks to me like this,
Oh, it's off.
like maybe we should say 5 and then
Yep.
just that F is clarification.
Yeah,
I guess maybe we can just bump it
Yeah,
back
it should,
out
it
so
should
it's
be.
indented a little differently or something.
No, thank you for finding it. Yeah, it should be 5. So I can work on that. That's not a big deal. I can get that.
Well, I appreciate this. Maybe we can get to a point where we're not all saying Airbnb, so Seema can stop twitching over there, and we can just actually start calling everything short-term rentals. Thank you. Greg?
Question regarding the 15. The boarding house had an up to 15 person.
Mhm.
Are we doing away with that? Or are we looking at,
Well, that's a question for the commission, really. I mean, if you want us to do that, I mean, that's not a problem. We would just need to put an exception in the guest room definition that would allow this type of short-term rental to allow more than 2 people to a room. And that's really, I mean, that's up to the, as the commission there, I'm looking for your all's opinion on this.
so possibly some flexibility?
I would say, for the sake of clarity for the public when trying to interpret this code, the cleanest thing to do would either be A, change the number of people that's in the guest room definition, or B, change the number of guest rooms in this STR 2, so that we don't lead people down a path where they're going to maybe miss an exception because they don't understand the connection between the definitions or the uses or anything like that. So
What I'll say about that is, once you get to 6 guest rooms, then we fall under like hotel motel.
commercial,
Yeah.
Right.
And because that's, the hotel motel definition both talk about 6 or more guest rooms. So that's kind of where we get into that. So we would have to either somehow work on, we could go back to sleeping rooms that's in that boarding house type definition and define that, and have it talk about that it could be up to 3 people per guest room, not to exceed 5 guest rooms. We could change it that way, because we do have sleeping room in there now. It's not defined, even though in guest room it talks about boarding house. I think it's just I'm not gonna say it's a typo, but certainly it's a conflict in there.
so there wouldn't be any negative impacts to just changing the number from 2 to 3 in the guest room definition.
I think it technically would impact your bed and breakfast in particular, because that uses that definition to try to limit how many people are in a guest room and a bed and breakfast inn. It limits it to 2 currently.
In the short-term rental, do we indicate anywhere in it that it can be up to 15 persons? Because it looks like this will be struck and thus.
Just in the definition of boarding house, where it talks about it can be up to 15, it says up to 5 guest rooms, not to exceed 15 people. And then in our guest room definition is where it talks about no more than 2 people to a guest room. But it says sleeping room again in a boarding house, not guest room in the current definition. We just don't define sleeping room.
So we'll need to define sleeping room as one option. 2 is at a 6th category that does the boarding house. Or we increase the numbers, 3rd option, increase STR 1.
I guess another question too then is, with the lack of actual use, I think, like how many boarding houses
That's what I
are
was gonna
there
say.
in the
I think Seema has
So
some
it's-
answers on that one.
I mean, honestly, the boarding houses were more used when we had, like Trident had an area that they had a boarding house and they tore it down. But those are the seafood places were the places where we saw those boarding houses. I don't even think that we have one now that we consider a boarding house. But
What about Silver Bay's?
I was just going to say,
Spot
Silver
over
Bay, they were asking about it, but
It
they,
was a boarding house. It did turn into a boarding house.
the motel?
No, the one over by Powerhouse that they didn't tear down. Upstairs, it was turned into a boarding house.
Okay, so we have one. Do we know how many
Almost mixed
people?
up The buildings but there was one I permitted.
Yeah, I didn't think they did it.
They did, remember, because we were arguing with them over beds and how many people in the stacked parking. Because because here comes the parking again. We had to require them to fit on that very narrow lot. I can't even remember how many parking spaces. So then we got into tandem parking and how you can't tandem park with commercial, but you can with residential, but
Right.
not commercial residence. So there should only be one though, I think, in active use.
So should we slip boarding house into sort of the motel, hotel kind of arrangement?
Well, I guess the other option too, for anybody looking to operate a boarding house as it exists under the current definition, is for them to apply for a variance. To allow for.
You typically can't apply for a variance to a definition, though. If it was a separate kind of requirement, you could, but you typically don't allow variances for definitions.
That's fair.
Like I said, if we wanted to keep the 15, I guess the easiest solution to me is we'll just add another definition. We're adding several definitions. We could add one for sleeping room that's already in that definition currently, and then just take the boarding house out of the guest room, and that fixes that conflict. And the sleeping room could be very similar definition to a guest room. It just would allow
Additional.
3 people to the room
Bodies.
instead of 2.
Or you can just let us look into how many we really have and if that it's really being used and if there are 15 people in that one boarding house.
Because that
And
one
bring
might
that
not-
back.
I might be, because they tore one building down, but they kept the other side of the cannery. So I could be getting the sides mixed up, that they tore the boarding,
I
the
think that,
cannery with the boarding house down and kept the other side, or it's vice versa, and it's still there. I could look.
for some reason, I don't think that they could put the boarding house there because of the kind of freon or whatever they used below it. And so that boarding house could not happen. But can we research that and bring that back to you?
Please, I would love to have more research on
Yeah,
this stuff.
and
Sure.
I mean, I don't think we're in a real hurry to get this one going as much as I think the daycare one or the childcare one we were concerned about. So we can certainly bring it back to September and have more information. Go ahead.
Does the state have a definition of a certain number that, where they require it to be a
Yeah,
hotel?
the state
or-
doesn't, the state doesn't license short-term rentals. I mean, the only thing they require for short-term rentals is that you have a business license. But outside of that, they don't have other kind of license requirement for short-term rentals.
What about for hotels?
I'd have to look into it and see if they have anything for hotels.
Was there a specific like scenario we were thinking like why
Well,
you were
I just
asking
knew
that?
the state regulated the commercial properties like hotels and everything, so I figured they had a state definition of, they considered a certain, how they defined it. There must be a way they define.
Well, there's
what
certainly
was-
definitions, not really a short-term rental, but there's definitions of hotel and so on and even boarding house in the building code. And we have gone over that a little bit, but it doesn't really, I don't know if it's gonna really help us. It's again, more of a building code related kind of definition, but I can show you all what that code says.
Yeah, I was just curious if there might be a conflict there between state definition and our definition of boarding houses and hotels and where that line would be drawn.
I didn't
Seems like
see
there
anything in
would
the
be.
building
I mean,
code.
a hotel basically seems like it's a short-term rental. It's just bigger.
Yeah, we come up with the 6 rooms to kick in that it's a hotel motel, and then if that's the case, then they have to get usually commercial
That's not
commercial
necessarily-
code for their review for
That was just a
building code.
borough idea. The state doesn't have any such.
The state doesn't
Definitely.
license short-term rentals. Again, I said the only thing I know that they do is require that you have a business license if you're gonna operate a short-term rental business.
Yeah, the state has basically the threshold with that number of rooms is that now you have to build to a commercial building code
Exactly.
versus residential one.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let me I have a few more definitions here that we talked about we were going to look at. So under dwelling unit, I did look at changing that definition as we discussed at the last work session that to be more in line with the building code definition of dwelling unit. And so we took out that the kitchen being the main reason for it being a second unit. And so what this would say is, it means a single unit with one or more rooms providing complete independent living facilities for occupancy by not more than one family, including permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation, and a dwelling unit with an independent access, includes independent access from any other unit within a multi-unit structure, just to show that you don't go in one unit to get to the other unit, there's separate access points from each other for those. And then, in guest room, we talked about that and wanted to include that they had short-term rental and lodge in there. And then we also, as we talked about, to delete the motel definition and include motel in with hotels definition. So we added a sentence that say this would include the term motel. And then also in lodge, we wanted to make it clear that it can be on a day-to-day basis for rent. The previous definition just says for temporary rental to transient individuals, which typically is a day-to-day rental. And then we also defined long-term rental for being 30 days or more in duration for that period. I did put a zoning required for these in here that would and this is basically emulating what's current required for these uses in the code, so it's not proposing anything. The only thing I did show was to say RNC for hotel, because RNC allows motel but doesn't allow hotel. If you get rid of motel, then you need to do something with that, so we would add RNC in there. And then in the section 1715-120, which is the licensing or type requirement for bed and breakfast, lodges, motels, hotels, and vacation homes, we stated in here that we would include short-term rental use, which would include all those 5, lodge, a hotel, removed vacation home, because that's part of that short-term rental list of uses, and then must be submitted to the Community Development Department as part of the zoning compliance application, because these are, since it's a change of use, you are required to get a zoning compliance permit, so not really a certificate of zoning. And it says a zoning compliance permit must be approved prior to operating the business. Zoning compliance permit for a short-term rental lodge or hotel does not preclude the long-term rental of a dwelling unit or guest room. And then it says a rental of a guest room and not a full dwelling unit is restricted by the type of permitted use. For example, lodge, hotel, and the various types of those STRs that are based on rent of a guest room and not of the full unit. And then in addition, I just wanted to kind of show what kind of the existing parking requirements would be for these types of uses. This is currently just by what it is. If it's a single-family house, this is that, or if it's a multifamily building or whatever, have those in here as well, including bed and breakfast and boarding houses. And I think that was everything on that one. Any questions on any of those?
I like the idea of more research on this one, and I would not want to press this one forward like we are with childcare.
Did you have something you wanted to add, Court?
I'm fine with discussing a little bit more on that.
Okay.
In the definition of dwelling
Mm-hmm.
unit, since we've taken out the single kitchen language, does that mean that somebody now could have a full kitchen in like a game room or a bonus room in their house, and it wouldn't be
That's what-
considered another
yeah.
dwelling unit?
Correct, yeah.
Does Ted know that?
Does Ted know that? He will, but I also would point out that Ted's definition of building code is going to be very similar to what our proposed one will be, so, yeah.
He's ex-nate a lot of, renovations that included a second stove in a different room. So, just giving him a hard time. Okay, anything else on this one?
And we'll do that research and bring that back to the September meeting, and we'll make some additional changes to these definitions too.
That sounds great. Thank you. That does it for our items for discussion. So we will now move into packet review. The first item that we have for discussion this evening under packet review is the CIP list that Bronwyn introduced at our last work session, and everybody had homework to come back with thoughts on where to place all these projects on this year's CIP list.
So I just let you all know that Brahman will be covering this one, and then she'll probably leave after this is over, since we have several other items that I'll be covering. I'm not going to make her stay for those. So, all right, there you go.
Okay, so the homework was for you guys to create your own list, and honestly, in my opinion, the easiest way for me to do this, and for you guys to do this, is to, even if your list, if the first project on the draft resolution isn't the first one on your list, I think we should just go through the list, the resolution, one by one, and we'll place them as we go, and you guys can give your opinion of where that particular project is ranked on your priority list, personally. If that sounds like a good way to do it. It's usually just easier, concise, if we mark them off on your resolution as we go, that we've already done that project and we prioritize them. Is that making sense?
So last year's chip list was not fulfilled, was not even touched. And so I would suggest that we take last year's chip and put it in to this year's and move it forward and have the state prioritize our wastewater treatment plant.
So the assembly will prioritize it, not the state, just so we're clear. The state doesn't prioritize our list. They pick and choose which project they feel that they can fund that particular year. But the assembly prioritizes it, not the state.
Thank you for that clarification. So
Yep.
prioritizing our recommendation to the Borough Assembly is my desired outcome.
Can I ask for a little are you saying you just want to reuse the order that we used for, okay,
Yes, that is correct.
okay.
Other discussion?
I'd like to go forward with your recommendation to kind of just go over it and
Okay.
write it down.
Just so you guys are aware, there are some new emails that were included in the packet from the couple agencies that did answer me back. Carlick did answer me back for a couple of the projects that you guys had asked me to follow up on at last month's meeting. And if you go to, from project 15, 16, and 17, those are their projects. So they kind of made an update for for number 15 on this list. And that was just to let us know that the requested funding and everything, that number is still the same. They did adjust the talking point, like the summary, a tiny bit, but nothing significant. They did add the Carlick sewer truck, and then you can see number 17. I'd like to show a portion of the email just because I was unclear of what they actually meant. And they're having a go-between, almost like a buffer between Carluck and KIB. So I've been working with Michelle on that, and you can see her email response on that particular project. And that's why I did move it to number 17, because it sounds like they're not completely clear between their funding, and I could be misreading her email or misunderstanding what she's saying, but if you open up the email for Carluck, and scroll down. Okay, so right there, in some portion, I'm sorry, it's really hard for me to see it, she does mention towards the bottom of the email, that keep going. Sorry, Haley. I think right there. No. I'm sorry, I can't see it, but you guys are gonna have to find it on your own. But she does say that the summary doesn't quite match the project. So I asked for a clarification, and she said she didn't know what the clarification would be. So she's just the go-between. However, I'm just unsure with what they meant. So I don't know if their summary isn't matching the project name. I don't know if the summary isn't matching the requested funding. I'm entirely unclear. So I did move that one to the end, and you are more than welcome to move that project around as you see fit. I did just want to point that out, just so you guys know why there's a shift in the projects from last month's packet.
Do you happen to know if the USDA discontinued their grant program?
I did not
For
look
similar
into that.
projects?
I absolutely can and update you guys with information tomorrow on that, on the USDA grant funding. I'm assuming there's been a standstill. If it hasn't been, I'm assuming there's a standstill while they figure out what they're going to do with that. But I can definitely look into the USDA for you.
I think it might inform the ranking just and what the possibility is that they might have some success outside of state funding.
Yeah, absolutely.
For that, perhaps.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. And I mean, you guys can move it to where you want this week, and if we have to amend, we can amend next week. But I can get you that information you're requesting, Chair, if tomorrow afternoon, probably at the latest. So that way, so just check your iPads, and then you guys can let us know where you want to re-rank it if we need to amend the resolution.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
And I think The section you're talking about, I think, is at the bottom of, it's page 56 of 135, where they're saying they've got some conflicting answers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really hard to see that screen from this angle. Sorry, guys.
Okay. Yeah, this has been a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, I don't think she's entirely clear, and it just sounds like there might be a miscommunication between Carluck and her itself, not so much, maybe she's misunderstanding them. So there couldn't be any manner of whatever's going on there. I did just want to let you guys know because there was a shift in project numbers, and I moved things around, so.
Okay. Go for it.
Oh,
yeah.
one thing I just wanted to add, and I don't know if I feel like I might have said this, but maybe I was supposed to follow up with an email. I might have not, and I just thought about it. I'm curious to know how many residents year-round live in some of these communities that are requesting some of this stuff. Would that
You
be-
know, I haven't looked into that. I can easily get you guys that information, and when I email you about the USDA tomorrow, I can add in the population of the
Okay.
5 villages.
Not that one's more important than the other, but I'm just curious, because some of these are, like drinking water, that's important, but I'm also curious to know.
What I would say about that is, you have what the census says versus what the state of Alaska says. I would say the state of Alaska is probably more accurate to look at their population data than the U.S. Census would be. So we can give you the state of Alaska's population estimate for the communities.
Take it away, Bronwyn.
All right, guys. So this time, we're going to start working on Kodiak wastewater treatment plant facility. They have an estimated project cost of 1.9. They have already acquired some funding, and they do have needed funds of 1.8. You guys let me know where you want this on ranking 1 through 17, and we will adjust. I will create my list over here as you guys figure out where you want certain projects.
That one looks fine for me.
As
Same.
number one.
Number 1.
Where'd you have it? I'll be the outlier. I had it at number 6. Only because I opted to move everything that was related to having clean drinking water and access to food ahead of everything else. It's not that I don't believe that this isn't a good project. So if the majority of the group would like to leave it at number 1, that's fine with me. I just was the only weirdo that had it a little further down the list.
Are we keeping it at 1, or do you guys want to adjust?
1.
One's fine with me.
Okay. Your second project on the list, let's go ahead and go to that. And you're gonna look at St. Herman's Harbor infrastructure replacement. The phase 1 and 2, they have it broken down into different phases. So they have funding acquired, and they have 1.8, funding needed 5. Where would you like project number 2? St. Herman's Harbor?
I'd say that's 2 still.
Are these old? These are old funding amounts? The city hasn't given you updates
I did reach out
yet?
to. What?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I did reach out to Matt, and he did say he was going to get me an updated bid amount, or an updated project. He never ended up doing that, and I didn't want to harass the guy. He's leaving soon, so I think it kind of just got lost in his wayward stuff. So they didn't update it as of today. I can
think
reach back out one more time if you would like.
It just doesn't look like the MARAD grant is accounted for
Okay.
that the city got. So it might just be worth following up with Dave Johnson. Oh,
And that was the
Perfect.
Mara grant, you said?
yeah.
Okay. All right. And where are we putting St. Herman's infrastructure?
Think 2 should be 2 myself.
Agree.
I had mine further down.
I did too. Where'd you have yours?
6.
I put it way down at 10. I know it's a huge economic development project, right? Like that's what's hard about ranking all of these is because it's like trying to figure out how to do the most good, right? But initially, I think at the last work session, I had said the same thing that Mr. Dagan did, in that perhaps since nothing got funded, we didn't need to move anything. But I thought a little bit about what Commissioner Mangini had said and just some of the questions that he had about projects that were supplying drinking water to communities. And I feel like in the year 2025 in the United States of America, it just seems a little unbelievable that there would be communities that don't have consistent access to clean water,
And
or
if-
are concerned about not having clean water in the very near future.
Yeah. If you do go to that email where Michelle and I are going back and forth, she does explain the hardships of what they're having to deal with right now with their drinking water, and it is pretty astronomical that they're having to deal with that. So I will point that out since you're on the topic of that.
So that was the only reason that some of the bigger projects, some of the shinier ones, more glamorous ones, kind of got moved down my list a little bit. So I'm certainly not opposed. I don't want to be like, combative. I'm not opposed to putting things somewhere different than where I ranked them. I just wanted to put on the record why there was such a change for me personally in terms of where these were, because I don't think I have a single one in the same place that it was
Yeah.
last year.
So,
So
as of
I just
right
wanted to
now,
explain
you guys
that.
are 2 and 2.
I'm fine with leaving it and then seeing if perhaps there's some additional input next week.
Okay.
If we've got, Tracy will be here. We'll get to something that's not a tie if we've got someone else here next week, right?
Put an asterisk next to the ones that there's some debate about.
Sure.
Leave it where it is, put an and when Brahman presents next week, you can just say, hey, there's a lot of discussion about this one being number 2. And then you all can vote on it individually if you want.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to project number 3, we have service area number 1, road improvements and paving. Estimated cost 6, local funds 1.2, needed funds 4.8. And where would you guys like to rank this?
17. Actually, let's do 16. And the other district that had the paving
We're only
was-
working on number 3 right now. I don't want to get confused and mess up your guys' resolution.
I understand that. However, Women's Bay was also talking about repaving, so that's number 11 at line 204. So for me, the paving of District 1, as much as I am an advocate for it and sit on that board, paving, I would say, is the least of our concerns. Water security is definitely a higher priority, and I'd rather have good, clean drinking water for our communities than paved roads.
Okay?
I have this one at 17 on my list.
I would go with 16 and Women's Bay for 17.
I'd be fine with either of those.
As would I.
But we'll decide where this one goes, and then we'll circle back to the Women's Bay one on the, is it on the next page, I
It's
think?
on-
Somewhere at the bottom of the next page or page after that? Okay.
Is that where I'm ranking it? Number
Yeah, that was-
17, 16?
That was 2 of us, so there's 2 of us that haven't spoken yet. What do you
I
think?
agree.
Yeah?
16 or 17.
Will you guys tell
What do you
me
think, Court?
16 or 17?
Still mulling it over, just letting it.
Well, one thing I do appreciate the water thing and stuff, but the basic fact of the matter is if we don't have good infrastructure, it doesn't do a whole lot of good to have good clean water either. You gotta have the ability to use that water and get to things. It's kind of a toss-up there. I don't know how much this is needed, that service district, if it's more improvement or more serious maintenance that's needed, that would be something, I guess, to take into account. I mean, we got roads that nobody can drive on, that's not a good thing either. So, as always, these lists are a challenge, that's what I think.
Always.
That was the reason for the Hail Mary pass, using last year's chip.
I get it.
I like that, you thought, man, that was pretty bold of Craig.
I totally get it.
Resubmitted.
So 16, 17,
Oh, we're back, yeah.
Let's say 16.
okay.
I think that
Thank
was
you.
maybe the
Changed it.
consensus there.
Okay. Project number 4, hospital facility sterilizer and boiler replacement, asking 10, needing 10. I did follow up with Cody on this, our Director of Engineering Facilities. He says there has been no changes to the needed funds and/or the summary. Where would you guys like to place number 4?
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
The hospital has an enterprise fund, right?
I'm going to defer to either
Oh,
Chris or the
here
AO.
comes Dora.
Thank you.
Saving the day. Thanks, Dora.
Yes, they do have an enterprise fund. Yes, there's a large portion of their lease payment every month that goes into an RR fund specifically for agreed upon R&R projects. I just looked at that number for a different reason. The current balance in that R&R is 6.2. And I know there's other projects than just this one that the hospital and the borough are struggling to get paid for. So the HFAB committee is working on that, prioritizing those projects.
Okay. Thanks.
So more not, right?
Thank you, Dora.
You were helpful in my quest for knowledge, and I appreciate that. I had this one at number 8, and then I bumped it down to number 9 because I did my whole list and then realized that the Carlex sewer truck got added, and I put that above it just because that's a sanitation issue.
Right, okay.
Um,
So are we
but I
think-
very much see the value in this project.
So are we thinking maybe we want to move it to somewhere where you originally had it in 7?
I would love to hear what the group has to say.
Me too.
Well, thank you. I believe Providence is able to bear certain costs, and that they do have an enterprise fund that they can bump up if they should ever choose to. And we, the borough, also can increase our funds. This is, again, as I recall, a wish list to the state to kind of magic wand all of our problems away. So that being said, I believe this is all just game theory work. I see this as a number 10 item, lower on the list. Sanitation, water, purification, all of those would take higher priority. Plus, some of those projects are low-hanging fruit. The state might actually jump on a $100,000 project versus a $10 million project. So there's that kind of gamesmanship that we may want to consider in our equation.
Sure.
So, the water thing, is that more of a supply issue or a quality issue? Or both?
I think depending on the water project, it could be either. So like in Larson Bay, they have a lot of issues with leaks in the actual system. They also have issues with the structural integrity of the spillway. So if that gives way, that means that Larson Bay doesn't have any water. They don't even have dirty water.
It's also the way they do their hydroelectric is the spillway too.
Yeah.
Correct.
And we did put them on to, just to let you know, we did add them into the high hazard potential dams for the hazard mitigation on it over the years about potential leaks and things from the spillway and concern about it failing.
Yeah, so a number of years ago, 2017, 2018, maybe, there was an explosion of cases related to zoning in Larson Bay for lodges. And it was pretty contentious, and really what was at the root of it, if you go back to the very beginning of the discussions and the issues, was the water. So the residents in the city of Larson Bay and the tribe had concerns about the lodges using too much water, given the fact that the properties aren't individually metered, and they lose just tens of thousands of gallons a day. So the issue of water there has caused lots of other issues in this kind of cascading domino effect.
Well, and I wanted to point out to you that it is the major power source too, because it is hydroelectric.
Couple cascading series of questions that I will have on this. First, how long ago was this? Was this like 10 years ago, 5 years ago?
The leaks have been there for a very long time, but the issues regarding zoning and the lack of compliance with zoning regulations was 2017 and 2018.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the safety of this dam, that is a high priority and is larger than this CIP program. So federal funds to mitigate some of these issues. Now that we've increased it to a higher standing in our mitigation plan, is the federal funding still present for any kind of remediation for these kind of dams?
So you may or may not have heard that, BRIC grants have been canceled. So there's a lot of concern with communities that BRIC grants are used for not only fixing potential hazards, but also for planning for them. It's a lot of how a lot of your, especially the village communities, have hazard mitigation plans of their own or funded through BRIC grants. And so a lot of the BRIC grants have been cut this year. And so I don't have a good status for you, but I do know that program has been cut back substantially over what it's been over the last several years.
So now we get into consequence management, as in emergency management. When this thing fails, what's the financial threshold to declare a national or a disaster status that we get federal funds for replacement or repair?
So, one of the things about putting this dam on the high hazard potential dam list is that we don't have a lot of information about what potential properties could be flooded. It has not been studied, to my understanding, of what an inundation would be versus, say, the ones that the city of Kodiak has identified as being a potential for, if it failed, it would flood these properties. That's much better known in terms of their environment, their emergency action plans. So my understanding, there isn't an emergency action plan for this dam, and there has not been an analysis for either what could be inundated if it failed, and also I couldn't find any updated, and this is looking at the state inventory of dams, any information on when the last time it was looked at for its integrity, what its condition is. And so we do have projects in the hazard mitigation plan that says, hey, we need to get an emergency action plan for this in place, but we need to first determine what its condition is. Then we also needed to do an emergency action plan and have it in place so that we understand first what are the dangers and then what is a potential response if we do have a failure, and then also make it known that it is, hopefully after we understand what the condition is, hopefully we could be able to get funding to resolve those issues. But in terms of federal funding for hazard mitigation projects, that has been reduced significantly this year. So and that's what, in terms of what's proposed in the next federal budget, it's been substantially reduced.
So to follow up on that question, as my request was, is there a financial threshold for getting up to 75, 90% reimbursement from FEMA for a declared disaster for this, that we have in this municipality?
I mean, I would have to talk to emergency management folks at the state level to see what they would say. It's not something I really, since I don't do emergency management for the borough or for the community, and I'm not that versed on terms of response. A mitigation process is a lot different than an emergency response, emergency operation plan would be. So I don't have the answers for you there, but that would be something I would say that Department of Homeland Security, Emergency Management at the state, hopefully would be able to answer for us.
Thank you. So again, I'm kind of going down a pathway of consequence management, and while this would help try to mitigate some of those problems, what we're not having heard, what's not being done, is that the state is not stepping up to replace or repair these critical infrastructure items. And we are going to have a critical failure at some point that could very well kill and destroy the economy of, kill people and destroy our economy of Larsen Bay. And so I advocate that we indicate our urgency for this to be taken out of the chip, but rather put into a higher priority for it to be addressed, if we have such power.
Go ahead, Bronwyn.
Oh,
You looked like you were ready to say something.
No.
Not to interrupt a good conversation, but I'm trying to make sure that I'm staying organized in my brain here. Did we decide where we were putting the hospital?
No, we are still on project number 4.
Okay. All right. So we had it at 9 and 10. We'll just put like the quickest pause so that we can move down to number 5, which is the Larsen Bay Spillway, just so we don't neglect the hospital project. What, Athena's and Court, what are your thoughts on where the hospital facility sterilizer and boiler replacement project should go?
No comment.
Okay.
I was thinking 12. Okay.
Okay, so we had a 9, 10, and a 12. Should we say 11? And
I can agree with 11.
Okay.
okay. All right. That brings us down to what we've already started our conversation on here. So if there is additional conversation to be had, let's do it. I had a question about whether or not any of the communities here have looked into eligibility or feasibility of utilizing the EPA's WIFIA program. So it matches the TIFIA program that DOT had or has had for a number of years. But it gives communities an opportunity to join together and get a project going to fix all this stuff. And then obviously there's repayment terms because it is not a grant program. But I didn't know if that had ever come up
As
or
far
not.
as I know, none have reached out through to that program. I do know that Carlick reached out to a few different entities, which you can find in their emails. I think they go to like 3 or 4 different people that they've talked to for funding for some of their projects. But they're the only ones who really mention, I think Larsen Bay at one point mentioned ANTH or ANTCH.
ANT,
Yeah, okay, yeah, I always get it messed up. I do think that I believe that they reached out to them at one point, maybe in the last 3 years, for funding or help with funding or financial backing, support, that kind of stuff.
because in the most recent notices of funding availability, the WIFIA program announced availability of an estimated $7.5 billion.
Okay. That is something that I would love to share with the villages, especially since we are going to be doing a trip here soon. So that would be a good thing for me to bring up during our discussion.
They've funded a lot of larger projects, like high profile, like LA, real, I mean, like big cities, big projects, 15 to $20 million, $30 million projects. So, I mean, it might be worth it to have each of the communities in the borough get together and put all of these projects in one
Absolutely.
place to kind of meet a threshold dollar amount, because they don't fund projects that are $100,000 or $200,000. They're, because it's money that you're borrowing, right? So for them, it's an investment. So they've got to make something off of the money that you're borrowing. So they're not gonna, they don't have the resources to do the really small amounts, because that's just not what's efficient for them and the business model, I guess, to kind of keep the program going. But
So it's more of a,
if everybody got together and decided what a fair repayment schedule was going to be for each community, the project might then be big enough to meet the threshold to the program.
I can definitely look into that and share that information with the other communities. Absolutely.
so it's kind of along the lines of an economic development model.
Yeah, it's not a grant program, it's repayment, but the terms are flexible, and they are very long.
That would work well for us, given our seasonality of commerce here with some of these remote communities. I like this idea.
So to keep the ball rolling, where are we looking at placing the City of Larson Bay Reservoir Spillway? They're asking for 1.2 and they need 1.2 for funding.
I had it at number 4, but I had the other Larson Bay project at number 2. I feel like it's top 5. I would love to hear what everybody else thinks, though.
I feel like as we're talking, mine are moving a little bit. It just moved it to number 2.
So at this point, we still have St. Herman as number 2. Are we open to discussing moving that one? And bumping St. Herman to number 3 and the City of Larson Bay Spillway to number 2 then? Or are we keeping that one and we're gonna place the Reservoir Spillway?
What do you guys think?
I could slip the harbor to 3.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I had the harbor down at 10 anyway, 11.
Okay, so just for
But-
the record, I want to state that St. Herman is now moving to project number 3, and we are going to insert City of Larson Bay Spillway into number 2.
Okay.
Alrighty, moving on, we are looking at the City of Port Lions Fire Station installation. Estimated project cost, $35,000. Needed funds, $35,000. So this is a smaller ticket item. At some point when a few of the staff members over the years has talked to the legislator who does promote these projects that we give them, he did say it is usually a good idea to put a smaller ticket item in your top 10, just because it's easy money for the state to kind of transfer 35,000 versus 4 million or 5 million.
Where'd you guys have this one?
I put that one at the very end, pretty close to, not the very end, but, down there above Carlick Food Security. 16.
Okay, so we've got a 16.
I have mine at 9.
So just so we're clear, 16 is already taken with SD1's paving, so where, unless we're moving SD1 paving.
So where, Mr. Dagan, where did you have it? This insulation project?
Well, I had it pretty low on the list, probably more like on the 14-15 spectrum, but given small project and possibility of funding, and my affinity for the fire service, let's bump it to 9.
I mean, we're still, I mean, I'm not trying to influence I just want you to know that they do, it's kind of a easier project for state funding.
I had it at 10. I put it right behind all of the sanitation projects and then the hospital project.
Okay.
So I guess we've kind of got this gamut here. Do you guys think we should have more discussion on whether it should be either in that top 10 or close to it or closer to the bottom? Or do we just kind of agree to meet in the middle and put it somewhere in like the 13-ish range?
I guess my problem with it is $35,000, why the heck aren't they doing it? And what's the big deal? If it's really worth it, they just do it. City, ain't that many people, I mean, it doesn't take that many people to put out $35,000, 35 people, it's $1,000 each, for just 35 people per year, ain't much, so I guess that's my problem with it, is,
Well, this is the city of Port Lions asking for the funding, not the citizens of Port Lions. Just so we're
Yeah.
clear, because what you're saying, it sounds like you want the citizens to fund it.
well, the city is the citizens, isn't it? Doesn't it represent the citizens?
Just to be fair, I mean, the citizens in Kodiak don't hand the city of Kodiak money. So that would, I mean, that's equivalent to what you're saying.
Well, you're true, that was a false equivalency, I'll admit that, you're right. But, I don't know, still, it just seems like it's kinda silly, I mean, if it's gonna save a whole bunch of money and it's worth it, just do it, get it over with, thank goodness, where they put their hand, anyway, sorry.
So
Didn't wanna offend anybody.
Do we want to have this one a little closer to the bottom then?
Personally, I feel that way.
This is all, again, game theory, so whatever suits the commission, I would be agreeable with.
So 16 is taken, but you guys do
I had
have.
it at 9, so
Nine.
it's not too much further if you wanted to do 13.
16 is the only one besides 11 in the higher numbers that's taken. So you guys have a lot of room to wiggle it wherever you want. Last, middle, 18, 16.
Are you guys okay with like 13 or 14 for now? And then we've got lots of other projects to go through too, so it very well could be that it gets bumped down as we get through some other projects that we
Yeah.
maybe think are higher priority.
14 works.
14?
14? Okay, guys. Alrighty, moving on, we have the Kodiak Island Borough Fire and Rescue Phase 1 Design and Engineering. They are asking for $312,000 for the design.
Number 15.
Okay?
I had it at 12.
Okay.
Well, actually, it ended up being 13 after I added in the Carlick sewer truck, so. What number did you say, Craig? 15?
I had it at 13.
Yeah?
So I'm good with
What do you think,
15
Court?
if you wanted to put it.
I'm good with it, whatever, pretty much, so.
You said 14 again? Sorry, I'm.
You did 15.
15.
15, but I could go with a 13. I could go.
We had a 13 and a 15. Maybe we can do 14?
14's taken with the Port Lions Fire
15
truck.
it is. Sold.
Okay. All right, guys. All right, project number 8, you have the Kodiak, KCHC expansion. Estimated total cost is 28.85. Needed funds is 1.2, so they do have a decent amount of, funding acquired.
I would suggest 11.
Okay.
Given that it's under-
11 is taken with the hospital sterilizer.
I thought that was 10.
No, you guys said 11. I can move it to 10 if you want.
I'm okay if we want to move that up to 10. I had the KCHC expansion at 12.
Okay.
I had it at 11, so I'm okay with
12 or 11 works for me.
Do you want to keep the hospital sterilizer at 11 and then put this one at 12, or switch that around?
I'm okay with switching it.
What do you guys think about the switch? Expanding KCHC versus replacing the infrastructure, the boiler and the sterilizer.
Also,
right.
note that they raised quite a bit of money already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So move.
I'm okay with the move. Are you guys okay with it? Just flip-flopping those two?
Okay.
I am fine with it as well.
Okay, so just for the record, we're moving hospital sterilizer to number 12, and we are inserting KCHC into number 11.
Okay.
Alrighty, guys. Man, you guys are cruising. We have City of Old Harbor septic tank. They're asking for 100,000. Needed funds is the 100,000.
Is this the community that has the septic tank purchased? They just need to remove the old one and have it installed, or they also need to still purchase it? It's just for the install.
Yes.
Right.
This one is just the installation of it,
So-
as far as I know.
So the funding acquired, there isn't additional funding that's sitting for the installation, but they have put forward the capital funding to actually purchase the tank and
Correct.
get it to,
Yep, they
Get
do
it to
have
the
the tank,
community.
as far as I'm aware. They do have the tank, and they're just asking for funding for the installation of said tank.
gotcha.
Mhm.
Okay.
So in the higher numbers, after number 10, you have 10 open, 13, and 17. And then you have 4 through 10.
Wait, can you say that one more time?
So you guys have, for open numbers, I know I said that really backwards, I'm sorry, that was mine. You have 4 through 10 open, 13, and 17.
Gotcha. I had this one at number 7,
Okay?
just because it's a sanitation related project. Relatively small as far as state funding goes.
Mm-hmm.
I had it at 10, but I wouldn't mind moving it up.
Okay.
I could go with 7 or 10. I think I'd rather see it at 10, though.
Okay.
You okay with 10, Court?
Yes, ma'am.
So you
Let's do 10.
Okay, guys? Alrighty.
You're so smart for writing all this down as you go. I didn't do that, and now I'm regretting it.
Yeah, well, I keep scribbling.
I'll have to come check out your list, Braun, when we're done.
Okay, sounds good, guys.
Don't go running off on us.
I'll come up there for a second. I was just joking about the second. City of Larson Bay, you guys have the equipment repairs and maintenance. They are asking for 157,000.
What do you guys think?
13?
Okay?
I had it at 12, so not too far off.
Had it at 14.
Court?
I'm good with whatever.
13's open, right?
Yep.
Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
What are you gonna? Okay.
Alrighty, guys, here is the Women's Bay Service District paving. So at this point, you guys have 4 through 9 open and number 17.
I think 17. We had kind of started to discuss this one in tandem with the Service District 1
Okay,
paving, so
and everyone was good with that? Okay,
In the metrics of 1 and 2, Service District 1 is first, and so it's 16, and 2 is 17, is Woman's Bay. But whatever is the fancy of the commission.
I'm fine with 17 personally. I had these two paving projects at the bottom. So, I mean, whether they get flip-flopped or not, I think is maybe inconsequential.
Okay.
I-
So we're placing it at 17? Okay. Moving on to project number 12 on our resolution. You guys have the City of Port Lions water distribution system replacement. Estimated project cost is 8 and needed funds is 8 as well.
Where'd everybody put this one?
I had this one at 3.
Okay.
I did too.
So 3 is currently taken, unless we move things, of course, but you guys have 4 through 9 open at this point.
Could we change again?
If you guys
We have
tell
the
me,
power.
we definitely could.
The St. Herman infrastructure, maybe to 9, this one to 3.
What do you guys think? Because I think what we heard over here when we talked about St. Herman Harbor was putting that as
As a
2, right? As a so
So
What do you
the economic engine of this community is a handful of things, and this critical infrastructure is one of them. And so that's the reason I suggested number 2. I could slip it to 3, as I thought we already had. But beyond that, I don't think I want to slip it any farther. Again, this is all theoretical. We're asking the state for these things. So I like the previous discussion about critical infrastructure loan model that we need to explore. And so with that new information, I'd put it between 4 and 9. The water distribution systems are high priority. I'd put them between 4 and 5.
We're-
Oh, sorry. And just to follow up on that, I think that my reasoning for that was Sarah's information, that maybe there was some additional funds that maybe were brought in. And so it seemed like it could have been something that maybe didn't require as much. Did I hear that right? Could be wrong.
for the harbor project, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's additional funding there.
The harbor project has a decent amount of funding. I can go ahead and break this down for you. Thema did, that's what she walked over earlier, was the breakdown. So phase 1, 23, phase 2, 33, phase 3, 50, phase 4, 66, and funding already acquired 11.5. So they do have a good chunk already kind of going. And 5 out of that 11.5 is from the city itself. So they added 5 million of their own dollars.
Well, in light of that breakdown, I'm agreeable to drop it to 9.
Can I, which one are we dropping tonight?
You mean the harbor project?
Right.
What are your thoughts, Court?
Well, I'm not sure you guys want to hear my thoughts. But
No, we do, for sure.
Okay. I'm big on the infrastructure. I think if we don't have an economy, we don't have a harbor, a good harbor support, we're gonna lose our fishermen, we're gonna lose a lot of our fishing industry, and that really makes the town. I mean, good drinking water is good to have, and all this other stuff's good to have, but if we don't have any people here to use it, we won't need it anymore. So to me, having the good roads, good harbor, that stuff is actually probably the most important stuff. That's my opinion personally. But, and like Carlick Food Security, those guys got plenty of food in Carlick. I don't know where that one's come up with. Where all of a sudden we're supposed to buy greenhouses for them so they can eat. And they got plenty of food down there already. Sorry, I'm a little bit of an old cod. Hopefully I'm not sounding too grouchy here, but I also understand you guys' opinion, and I appreciate that. So I'm easy, I'm adjustable. That's the lens that I look at it through. I want to see our basic infrastructure taken care of more than anything else. And, drinking water is part of the infrastructure. That's the spillway and the power in the village. That's a big one. I agree with that a lot. And that's pretty much my thoughts right there.
Okay, so I got myself all mixed up here on the wrong page. So we're on number 12 right now,
Correct.
right? And our discussion is currently centered around the fact that the number that we threw out a second ago was already taken. So we would need to move something if we wanted to use that number. And what was in the place of that currently was
St. Herman.
the harbor.
And that's in place at number 3. So we'll just do a quick recap of where we have everything on the list. So number 1, you have Kodiak wastewater. Number 2, you have the spillway for Larson Bay. Number 3, you have St. Herman's. 4 through 9 is blank. Number 10 is City of Old Harbor tank replacement. Number 11 is KCHC. Number 12 is the hospital. Number 13 is Larson Bay equipment repair. Number 14 is the City of Port Lions fire truck. Number 15 is the Kodiak fire design. Number 16 is SD1 paving, and number 17 is Woman's Bay paving. So currently you guys have numbers 4 through 9 open. You guys could place this one at number 4 if you would like to keep St. Herman where it's at, or we can move St. Herman.
I guess with the discussion that we've had already about Larson Bay, in my mind, it's kind of hard to separate the similar needs of each of the village communities and plop the harbor project in the middle of them. Like, it's already kind of hard. You want to say that the water, right, in Carluck, Larson Bay, and Port Lions is all equally as important. So in my mind, it kind of sends the wrong message if we're picking like 2 of them and then putting in some other like civil projects and then like separating the water projects, I guess, since the scope may be a little bit different, but functionally they're all serving the same purpose. So I guess that's the internal struggle that I'm having right now. So I feel like if we're not going to slip the Larson Bay project down, then I feel like my personal view on it would be that we would need to move the harbor project down to make sure that the other water projects are kind of like in a row,
Okay.
sort of. If they could all be like, tied for third, that'd be cool. But
Okay.
obviously not an option here with our numbering, so.
Oh.
Question for you regarding the discussion next week with our other expanded commission. Are we going to revisit going through each of these line by line?
So, I mean, that's a good question that Bronwyn might want to answer, but my thought on it was that Bronwyn's putting this list together for us now so that she can send it out and we all have a chance to mull it over one more time. And any of the other commissioners that are not here this evening will also have that same time to look at the new list and see if there's anything significant that they would like to bring to the commission next week.
So I will just say, you're going to have a motion to open this item to approve something. And so if it's the list that comes out this evening that Brahman's putting together working with the commission, that can be what you open up and have a motion to approve. And then you really have the options there to do amendments to that item to move things around. And that's kind of how it's been done, at least the last 2 years.
Correct. And then you can make a motion to amend the original motion. And that's how you would end it. That would be your last vote of that night. Personally, once Haley gets the audio up and I adjust this list tomorrow morning, because it's going to be the first thing I do, I will be emailing everyone with a link to the audio in that email, along with this, your guys' new updated list on how you guys figure everything out tonight. And then from there, I'm going to ask, like as a little caveat in that email, I'm going to ask the few commissioners who weren't here to review that audio, especially this section, or at least the public hearing portion. Hopefully they'll listen to the whole thing. So they can weigh in next week if you guys do need to do amendments and everyone's kind of on the same page. But that'll be more up to the few that are not here tonight, to do it on their own.
Do we have a deadline to get this?
Yes, we do. I have to have this turned into the assembly 90 days prior to the end of the calendar year. So at the very latest, you guys could postpone it till September, but it has to go in October to the assembly so they can make their deliberations.
Yeah, we're missing quite a bit of us, and instead of amending, maybe just putting it on next month.
So, I mean, at the meeting next week, we can vote to postpone
Yes.
the item to
Absolutely.
the
You'll have
September
to
regular
open-
meeting, and then
Mhm.
we'd have the September work session to talk about it.
Correct. You guys will have you guys will have to open with a motion to approve the resolution, and then you guys can move to postpone. Just know that that original motion will stay on the table until next month.
And then if the document changes substantially at the September work session, we can just come back to the September regular meeting and somebody can vote to amend by substitution.
Absolutely, yes. I believe we did that last year, and we substituted with document 2 or version 2. I can't remember what we called it, but we can set it up the same way if this happens and we move this to September.
We can set like a resolution A and B.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you,
Be a revised version.
yeah, so we can name this one A, and then we'll put the next one as B.
Okay.
So back to number 12, where are we going to prioritize City of Port Lions water distribution system? You guys have projects number 4 through 9 open.
I would propose making it number 3 and sliding number 3 down to number 4.
Okay? Any?
But that's just me.
So
Would-
based on that logic, then, what about the city of Larson Bay's water distribution? Because Port Lions and Larson Bay both have water distribution projects. So that would,
On the next item, I was going to propose that the harbor slides down one more again.
so why don't we just cut to the chase here, slide it to 9, drop in the water distributions as they stand, 3 and 4, and move on to 5 through 8.
So just for the record, just so I'm following, you want to move St. Herman's to number 9, put Port Lions distribution, City of Larson Bay, and then Carluck's water storage tank as 3, 4, and 5? Is that what, okay, I just want to make sure that I don't want to mess up your guys' list. Is everyone in agreement with that?
It sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
We always have the chance to shelve this and work on it in September.
Yeah, and I mean we can have discussion next week when we put an original motion on the floor. We can then discuss the document that's in front of us. We don't have to make any changes to it. We don't have to vote to amend anything, but we can have some additional discussion with
Correct.
additional commissioners. And once we're satisfied with the discussion that we have next week, that's when we make the motion to postpone it to September. So then we get the opportunity to discuss it next week, the September work session, and then we can make a final decision at the regular meeting in September.
I like that.
Okay, guys. Okay, so then we're going to cross off 12, 13, and 15 off this list and leaving number 14, City of Larson Bay upgrade to City Hall for $700,000. You have numbers 6, 7, and 8 open at this point.
This one was actually number 14 on my list. So I feel like my not vote, because we're not voting today, but I feel like my suggestion would be 8. But again, I would like for everybody else to share what they think. Because it is important to have discussions about this, whether we agree or not, because the purpose of having 7 completely different people up here is to have a realistic cross-section of what the community believes are the things that are important for the community. So
if you guys want, we can review the summary, if that would help everyone, or, okay. So the City Hall building houses the senior center, teen center, library, city market, and the city offices. The building was originally built in '85 and needs numerous repairs. The kitchen in the senior center is outdated, cabinets are falling off. The entire building needs to be rewired, replaced light switches, outlets, flooring, windows, and doors. The roof needs repairs and is unstable due to weather damage. The inside and outside needs to be completely repainted. The restrooms need to be updated and redesigned. All new plumbing needs to be installed. So it sounds like they need a full renovation of the whole building, not just cosmetic.
You know, I actually lied when I said 8. I meant 7. I forgot that I had one more project that was lower than that.
Okay. So Sarah's saying 7.
It's an important project, definitely. I mean, if you haven't been out to Larson Bay, this really is like the center of the community. And a use that is not listed here, they also allow visitors to sleep here.
Oh.
There's beds, there's rooms for people to sleep there. So it's almost like a little de facto hotel for guests that come on government business and things like that.
8.
Sarah said 7. Craig says 8. Court?
Nah, I don't have anything to say there.
Okay. Athena?
I will agree, number 8.
Okay. All right, so we're going to place the City of Larson Bay upgrade at number 8. All right. Okay, we have the Carlick sewer truck. Estimated project cost is $150,000. You guys have number 6 and 7 open, so you guys only had 2 more projects to rank.
Rowan, perhaps I'm missing something. Can you
You want me to
tell me
recap the
what
list?
1 through 5 is, please?
Yeah, do you guys want me to just recap the whole list of how I have it written, how I've understood you guys all night? Yeah? Okay.
Thank you.
So number 1, we have Kodiak wastewater. Number 2, you have Larson Bay spillway. Number 3 is the City of Port Lions water distribution. Number 4 is Larson Bay water distribution. Number 5 is Carlick storage tank. Number 6 and 7 are blank. Number 8 is City of Larson Bay upgrade to City Hall. Number 9 is St. Herman. Number 10 is City of Old Harbor tank replacement. Number 11 is KCHC. Number 12 is hospital. Number 13 is Larson Bay equipment repair. Number 14 is City of Port Lions fire truck. Number 15 is Kodiak fire design for phase 1. Number 16 is ST1 paving, and number 17 is Women's Bay paving.
For the city of Port Lions,
The fire truck?
it's insulation, right? It's the fire department insulation.
For the
The building's insulation, yes.
yes, I believe so. If you want, we can recap the.
Because didn't
the summary.
they don't? Port Lions doesn't have a fire truck on this year's list, right?
This was also
Yeah, it's
last year's.
the insulation for the, did I say I wrote
Okay.
fire truck? My bad, that's my,
I think one of the purposes for it
was to house the fire truck. That's my
Yeah,
fault.
so that they
sorry.
can actually keep
Yes.
water in it,
Yes.
which is crazy important to put out
So that's
fires.
my
Yeah.
fault. I just mixed up some of the words in there.
Okay, I just didn't know if I was looking
Nope,
at the
nope,
wrong document.
that's clerical error
which
on
happens.
staff's end, my end. Okay, so this is the Carluck sewer truck is the next project we're looking at for the 115,000 or 150,000.
Number 6.
Okay. 6 for
I
Sarah.
I would agree with that.
Okay, majority. So then that's going to place the native village of Carluck, the community food security project at number 7.
So I guess the question is then with that one, is that where we would like it? Or if this was the second item on our list, would we have put it somewhere different?
do you guys want to adjust the list? We absolutely can.
Yeah, so if we feel like this one isn't number 7 and it should be number 12 or 13 or something like that, we can move everything else up and put it somewhere different.
I would agree with Commissioner Neff that this priority is important. However, I believe that that community is also self-sufficient in many ways. And so bumping it down to the 17, I could see doing as well. But if we want to keep it middle range at 7, I'd be agreeable to that as well.
I would like to propose that we move the insulation for the fire truck up to 7 and
Okay.
7 down to 14.
Okay, so the Port Lions fire insulation to 7, is everyone in agreement with that? Yep, okay.
That's a good compromise.
Okay. Give me
And then putting the community food security project in its place at 14.
Okay.
I do certainly agree that food security is really important. I just think that there are some good options out there and maybe some additional programs or partnerships to look into for
Yeah,
that
so
kind of project.
At one point, if you reference the email between Michelle and I, she does talk about funding that they had already acquired. It was right under 5,000. I want to say it was 4,280 or something like that, which was to buy I think they call it like a tunnel.
High tunnel?
Greenhouse. Yes, yeah, huh? So they bought one of those, but apparently it's just not sustainable for the weather that they have there.
It's too windy for a high tunnel.
I'm assuming because they said it just wasn't viable for their community. And that's why they're coming back with this new funding with these updated, or with this new updated greenhouse. And they'd given us pictures at last year's meetings for it. I think it's just a little bit more weather stable, and that's why they're re-requesting. So at some point they did get money. It was just not the only thing they could buy with it was just not sustainable for that community. I guess just before we go, I just want to recap this whole list really fast. I know we've done it a couple times already, but shifting things around, I just want to make sure I'm understanding where everyone's at. So again, we have Kodiak wastewater at number 1. Number 2, we have the spillway for Larson Bay. Number 3, I have the City of Port Lions water distribution. Number 4 is Larson Bay water distribution. Number 5 is Carlick storage tank. Number 6 is Carlick sewer truck. Number 7 is City of Port Lions insulation. Number 8 is City of Larson Bay upgrade to City Hall. Number 9 is St. Herman's Harbor. Number 10 is City of Old Harbor tank replacement. 11 is KCHC. 12 is the hospital. And number 13 is Larson Bay equipment repair. Number 14 is the one we just discussed, food security for Carluck. Number 15 is Kodiak fire design. 16 is SD1 paving, and Women's Bay is the last at 17. Okay. So I will update this list and email everyone in the morning, and then once Haley gets the audio updated and I'm finished moving these projects around, we'll go ahead and email you guys everything with the updated list, and then at next week you guys can figure out if we want to postpone or not. Okay.
That sounds good. Thank you. Was there any additional discussion for the commission on that item, or do we think we're ready to move on to our next packet review item? Ready? Okay. Let's do it then. The next item is case number 25-013. It is a similar use determination for a child care center to reside within North Star Elementary. Staff report, please.
Yes, similar use determinations are permitted at the commission's discretion under KAB BC 1715-090. The applicant has requested a similar use determination, determine whether a daycare use is permitted in the public use land district. Because the use is similar in character and intensity to a school use, which is a permitted use within the PL district. The location of the subject property is the North Star Elementary School building, which recently closed. There is a potential that daycare services could take place in a portion of the elementary school building Currently, daycares are not permitted uses in the PL district. The similar use determination will allow the commission to approve the use within the zoning district if the commission agrees there is a similar use permitted within the zone. The use of a daycare is most like a school use within the PL district, except for potential hours of operation. However, it is not anticipated that a daycare at this location would have hours of operation that dissimilar to an elementary school, and staff does not foresee that a daycare use would pose a potential nuisance to surrounding properties. In fact, daycare services at this location would increase access to daycare services in this part of the community and can be viewed as an asset to the surrounding neighborhood. Therefore, staff has recommended approval of the similar use determination to the commission. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think it's pretty similar use.
I have no problem with this. I'd like to see it move forward.
The one thing,
Same.
the one additional thing that I would say, I do apologize, is
Go
that
for it.
for similar, when you have these kind of provisions in your codes, typically they're there kind of as a stopgap measure to precede changes to your code. Because one of the things that's a problem with having this kind of provision in your code is long-term retention of what the commission may have done 10, 20, 30 years ago in a similar use determination. So it's always good to keep track of them and then go back into your code and make changes to try to reflect, in other words, add the use into the zone if you're considering it similar. So which is similar to what we've already talked about early in our meeting today, which is to look at childcare facilities and where they're permitted in the borough.
Yeah, I think this is a really timely item in that we also have the YMCA coming for this upcoming school year, and they will be providing childcare services at each of the elementary schools after school. So I'm glad that we've got something broadly to cover that before the code amendment happens.
Correct.
Okay, if we don't have any more discussion on this item, let's go on down to case number 26-002, Planning and Zoning Commission bylaws revision.
All right, let me get through all this pages I have here. Here we go. Planning and Zoning Commission at its July 9th, 2025 work session directed staff to bring forward the proposed amendments to the commission bylaws to a public hearing in August. The amended bylaws include the following proposed changes. Article 3 added a definition for the use of term director, which means the director of the Community Development Department. Article 6, quorum and voting requirements. Changes proposed in this article clarify what happens when 4 votes are not reached in the affirmative to pass a motion. The clarification states that the commission must vote and pass a vote with 4 votes to close a case. The commission can postpone action on an item, especially quasi-judicial items, to a future meeting where there are sufficient members present. Article 7 meetings, proposed changes clarify the use of executive session by the commission, especially in situations where deliberation occurs in executive session. For quasi-judicial items, all decisions by vote must be done in open session, and findings must be adopted, and conclusions must be based on the record of the case as presented in open session. Article 7C, proposed amendments clarify that audio files must be kept for all work sessions. Work session review of quasi-judicial cases must work to ensure that the applicant attends, or at the very least, the applicant was invited to attend and made aware of how to listen to the work session if unable to attend. Article 7D, the proposed changes added an electronic participation section like the code section for the assembly. This includes similar requirements. For example, for electronic participation to be conducted, at least 4 members must be present in person for a quorum to allow other members to participate electronically. It would allow up to, I don't have it listed here, but allow up to 4 participations in regular meetings by a member and unlimited participation for work sessions. In Article 9, procedure in paragraphs B1 and B2 to change staff comments to director's report for the regular meeting agenda and work session agenda. 7 added a new article, Article 14, Planning and Zoning Commissioner Training. This proposed change creates an article for commissioner training and requires that the commission attend at a minimum of 4 hours of training. In addition, any cost for training may be covered by the Community Development Department if approved ahead of time by the director. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. I will just point out too, just to clarify, whatever the commission votes on, they will have to go to the assembly, the bylaws for approval by the assembly.
Discussion on this agenda item?
When's the last time the bylaws have been updated?
I think it was in 2014, I believe, is what the
So we're due.
last one I saw said.
Yeah, it's definitely time. Thank you for making the changes that you did in response to the last discussion that we had on this item. Looking forward to the changes. Okay. Case number 25-010, foreclosed properties. Legal descriptions are stated here. Request for review of land disposal for future land sale.
All right, thank you. The two tax foreclosed properties were acquired in accordance with Borough Code and Alaska statutes. Tract E, Shearwater Bay, ASLS 87-43 is located within the Kodiak Island Borough and is currently vacant. The borough does not have a public use or future use for this property. Therefore, the property can go through the disposal process for a future land sale. Lot 15, Block 3, Aleutian is a single-family residential zone property located within the city of Kodiak. The Borough Finance Department sent a notice to the city of Kodiak, which is listed as Exhibit B to the Commission's resolution. The city did not respond to this letter, which asked whether the city had a public purpose for this property. The borough does not have a public use for the property or future use for this property, and therefore the property can go through the disposal process for future land sale. Staff recommends that the commission make a positive recommendation to the assembly for disposal of these properties for a future land sale. And your resolution before you, resolution number FY 2026-003, does recommend disposal and future land sale of these properties to the assembly. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. And also, Dora, the director for the Borough Finance Department, is here if you have any questions about the process these properties went through for foreclosure.
Yeah, so since this is the first time I think that the majority of the folks on the commission have seen one of these, do you guys think that it would be beneficial for you to have Dora come up and give a summary of the process that gets us here?
Yeah, I'd like that, just to.
That would be
learn about
greatly
it.
appreciated.
That's all right.
Thanks, Dora.
Evening. So the process begins, we bill the taxpayer. They receive their statement, they don't pay their taxes or pay partial on their taxes. A lot of times, it's usually someone who's passed away and their family doesn't want to take up the property is the majority of the ones that go through this process. So they don't pay their taxes. We publish them in the publication in February, the big, large publication. We wait a year after that, and then we go to the courts and say, we haven't gotten any response. It's been almost 2 years now, and the courts issue us a clerk's deed on the property. During that time, there's 3 different sets of mailings that go out. Some of them are certified mailings. Some of them are just regular mailings. Our attorney has reviewed all of this. We pull title reports and notify anyone who has an interest in the property on the title report as well that this is happening. And after we get no response, then we go ahead and do the clerk's deed. After the clerk's deed, the process starts. We ask if there's any interest in the property, if it's in a city limit, and that's by state statute. And then if not, then we present it to P&Z for approval for land sale. So at this point, if it's in the city limits, and I've been here 13 years and I've only done this twice, there's 2 properties that were within city limits, and so we push those forward to a sale. What happens is any excess proceeds over the cost of sale and the property taxes revert back to the owner if we sell the property within 10 years. Most of the properties, if they're remote, we hold them for 10 years. like I said, most of the properties that we get are because there's deceased and there's nobody to claim the property. We hold it for the 10 years, and then after 10 years, we bring it to the assembly to sell. The 2 properties that I've had experience with in the past that are within the city limits, we do that because there's usually a health and safety issue with the property, because usually it has some kind of structure on it if it's within the city limits. And so we push those forward to a sale quicker. Both of those properties were redeemed at the last moment. They did not go to a public sale. So, and I think one of them, they finally came up with the money. The other one, they sold it to a contractor at the last minute, and the contractor came in and paid the money so that they could complete the sale. So one of these is within the city limits, and I think the other one's remote. So one of them will probably be keeping unless they push that forward to a land sale. Again, it's hard to distribute money back when there's nobody to distribute the money back to. And honestly, I don't want to become somebody's real estate agent because they don't want to take care of their property or try and sell it on their own. So, and we don't, unlike other states, we hold it for 10 years, and we don't allow anyone else can come in and pay the property, but they don't get their name on the title. Other states will let you purchase the property and then have an interest in the property. The state of Alaska doesn't allow that. So it can only go back to the owner of the property in its entirety. There's no other diminishment of their ownership. So they can repurchase it at any time within that 10 years if we hold it for 10 years. Any questions?
Yeah, so this remote property, this one you guys have held on to for 10 years?
No, we just received these in the clerk's deed, I think, last year. And we just hold on to it for 10 years. But we have to before we can sell it, we have to have acknowledgement that there's no public use for it. If it abuts, like State of Alaska Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife property, then we contact them and offer it to them. Sometimes they want to consolidate their holdings, but the State of Alaska is kind of in a period now where they want to divest themselves of property. So we haven't had any pickups in that for years.
I'm not super familiar, I guess, with the island. Can somebody tell me where this is at? Like around where this is at?
So I was researching it here. I can show you on a map. Because, of course, I'm insatiably curious. So,
Sorry.
if you go to maps.google.com, you can zoom in on it. But essentially, zooming out, this is
Exactly where it is.
on the other side of Sultry.
Oh, okay.
So if we're here,
Mm-hmm.
Sultry's in here, Pasagshak is right there. Across that peninsula is the Shearwater Bay.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions for Dora? Not currently. If you do think of other questions after tonight, feel free to email Chris and he can
Yes, thank you.
get those answers for you. I didn't have any questions on the case. It's more of like an administrative kind of thing. So on the first page of the staff report, under surrounding land use and zoning, number 3, it says that Aleutian Block 3, Lot 15, that the surrounding zoning is wildlife habitat and that the land use is vacant. I think those surrounding uses just got flipped.
We did.
So maybe if we
I
can just
apologize.
change that for next week so that nobody gets confused during the public
I did.
public
I will
hearing.
fix that. Thank you.
That was all I had. Okay.
I will say that the comprehensive plan discussion, that is the correct listings for those. I didn't get mixed up there, so.
Yeah. It was just that one section that got a little wonky. So.
All right.
Okay. The last thing that we have under public hearings and packet review is case number 26-001, land disposal of USS 3465, lot 1A4. a portion of the property as depicted on a draft preliminary plat dated February 22nd, 2019.
Thank you. The proposed land disposal is a portion of the property, and in this case, the portion of the property proposed for disposal is vacant and currently undeveloped. The current future land use map designation is public facilities. However, the current public facility on the property is a parking area, an area for dumpster for solid waste disposal, and a recreational field. Therefore, the proposed disposal of the vacant and undeveloped portions of the property will not adversely impact the public facility portion of this property. There is no current or future public need for this portion of the subject property, and therefore this portion of the property is surplus to public need and can go through the disposal process for a future land sale. In addition, the area proposed for disposal will need to be subdivided from the main property to create the 4 lots proposed, and also would need to be rezoned from the public lands zone, or the PL zone, to the R2 zone, which was what was discussed previously at the Borough Lands Committee and also recommended to the Assembly. I will also say that the Assembly's kind of already looked at this once. The Borough Lands Committee made a recommendation to them to begin the disposal process for this property, and so the Assembly did already approve one resolution directing the manager to begin the disposal process, which will again go to the Commission, and then we'll go back to the Assembly for them to look at that disposal, look at the recommendation from the Commission, and then as part of their final decision on the disposal, they will determine how it's going to be sold, because the land sale portion will have to be determined by the Assembly. And our recommendation to the Commission is to approve Resolution FY 2026-005, which recommends that the property be considered surplus to public need, and therefore recommends that the Assembly approve the proposed land disposal for a future land sale once all required actions to prepare the property are completed. As I mentioned, there are several other items that will be coming before the Commission. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Questions?
Go ahead.
Did I hear correctly that the playing field would still be intact?
Correct. So they're not, so the proposal, so there's the forested area that's on the property. That would be 3 lots would be created out of that. And then there's a triangular piece that is away from the, where the current recreational area is and where the parking area and the dumpster locations are. And that would be the 4th lot. That will be required to go to the Commission for a review based on the number of lots, but also based on the kind of the design of that 4th lot. Since it's kind of a triangle, it's an unusual shape. So with those things, it will need to go to the Commission for a review. We would suspect that if the Assembly does approve the land disposal and then sets the sale method, as part of that, of course, they'll be directing the manager to continue on with preparing the properties, which is the subdivision and the rezone.
Thank you. The next question I have is this going to be just a single-family dwelling, or are we looking at?
So the zoning proposed by the Lands Committee and accepted by the Borough Assembly in their resolution was to have it be rezoned to R2, which would be a 2-family zone.
Thank you. So the complaint or the individual that is on Scout Circle could potentially see a spike in their traffic if there was 2 families in that triangle.
I will say the zoning is pretty consistent. The R2 is kind of consistent zoning for this area. There's a lot of R2 zoned property in the vicinity and also throughout this particular subdivision.
Haley, would you mind clicking on where 3000 Scout Circle is? I think maybe 2 lots to the left. Let's try that one. Okay, so based on where they are located on Scout, there wouldn't be any additional traffic that they would see in front of their home. Then, based on where that triangle is. Mm-hmm. So they'd have one, potentially 2 additional neighbors. Somebody builds a single family home, they'll have one set of neighbors, and if they build a duplex, then it will be 2.
Okay. So usage on the roadway would be relatively light.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions? No? Okay. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that, Chris. Much appreciated. We do not have anything under old business. We also do not have any items under new business, which brings us to reports with our meeting schedule. We have a regular meeting next Wednesday, August 20th at 6:30 p.m. here in Assembly Chambers. And then our next scheduled meeting after that is a work session, Wednesday, September 10th, also 6:30 p.m. here in Chambers. And then that will be followed by our regular meeting on Wednesday, September 17th, 6:30 p.m. here in Chambers. No plat, no abbreviated or final plat approvals. And then for communications, we do not have any case result letters, so that brings us down to staff comments.
Thank you. Just a few things here. I'll have more in the director's report for the meeting next week. We were supposed to, Brahman and I were supposed to visit Uzinki today, but the weather did not cooperate, so we'll be going out there, I think, Tuesday of next week, hopefully. And again, we'll be working on the comprehensive plan with Uzinki. We also have scheduled on September 13th a meeting in Old Harbor to talk about the comp plan out there as well. And we're hopeful we'll get other of the villages to communicate with us to hopefully be able to visit them and get some work done on the comprehensive plan. I'll also say that in regard to the comprehensive plan, the surveys for community facilities and transportation are on the borough website still and will be up through the remainder of August. So if anybody hasn't taken one of those surveys, or those 2 surveys, please log on to the borough's website. You can go to community development and then click on Plan 2045's link on the left, and that will take you to our main page, and then you'll find the surveys listed there under community facilities and transportation. In addition, I will say the hydrology and hydraulic study for Russian River and Sargent Creek, we did receive the final report. We're waiting on the final presentation document there, and then we'll be scheduling hopefully a work session before the assembly to have the consultant River Focus Incorporated present to the assembly the findings of that study. And if anybody's interested in that, I will make sure to let the commission know when that work session has been scheduled. If you have any questions on anything, please let me know. Thank you.
Questions for Chris? Nope. Okay, Bronwyn bailed on us. So, Haley, do you have anything for us?
I just wanted to say thank you guys for making it out here tonight. I know it wasn't many of you, and it made the CIP list discussion a little bit more challenging, but I appreciate that everyone showed up and there was a lot of good discussion.
Thank you. Ms. Seema? Seema's good. Okay, all right. That brings us to commissioner comments. I will start with Mr. Dagan.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you.
Awesome. Court?
Yep, good job all, thanks.
Ms. Athenas?
I'm so sorry. I would invite you guys all to coffee, but I know that we can't do that. But next time I see you guys in the coffee line, it's on me. Thank you guys so much for being here. Have a good night.
I am really glad to hear that community development is heading out to our rural communities. You can talk about them a lot, but you don't really understand it until you go there for yourself and you see what people are dealing with firsthand. So I think that's really important. I know budgets are tight, but I'm glad that those trips were put in the budget. I really, really appreciate the discussion tonight. I 100% meant what I said. We're supposed to be a cross-section of the community. So I think if all of us were in agreement all of the time, there would be something wrong with the selection process that the assembly had for picking who was going to be on this board. So I really do appreciate everybody's input. And then the last thing, I'm going to be out of the country for the September work session. My best friend is getting married, and she didn't consult me as to whether or not I had any meetings before she picked her wedding date. So I won't be here for that, but I will be here for the regular meeting on Wednesday, the 17th. And that's all I've got. So I guess with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn at 9 p.m. on the dot. Thank you, guys.